Welcome to Understanding the Unhoused. My name is Joshua. Through a series of interviews with individuals who are experiencing homelessness, my intention with this podcast is to increase compassion and empathy for the unhoused. Though the terms homeless and unhoused can be used interchangeably, I prefer unhoused because it emphasizes that the problem is a lack of affordable housing rather than a personal weakness. When people see an unhoused individual, they can feel fear, anger, apathy, sometimes all three. My hope is after hearing their stories, hearing what it's like for them on a day-to-day basis, it will make it clearer that these are just people. People who, through a combination of bad luck, bad choices, and, let's be honest, a broken system, have found themselves without a roof over their heads. Okay, enough ado. I first met Betty while volunteering at EACP, a food bank in Emeryville. We were doing a shift together, we got to talking, and I found out that she herself is unhoused and yet has continued to go into this food bank volunteering as much as she can to give back, to help others that are in her situation, which always stuck with me. So when I started this podcast, I reached out to her, asked her if she would be willing to tell her story so others could empathize with this type of a situation. One other element of Betty's story that's not mentioned in this interview, she actually works full-time and still cannot save enough to afford a place of her own, which is sadly very indicative of both California and slowly the rest of the country, how things are going with the cost of housing. Please enjoy the interview. So Betty, can you describe the circumstances that first led you to be unhoused?
Sure. I think it started like infancy up to like age 5. My dad was pretty erratic. He was constantly moving us around. We moved 26 times between infancy and age 5.
Wow.
And he was constantly leaving me and my sister and my mom. I'm not sure what he was doing. I think he might have been going to work. But it was kind of a strange decision why couldn't he just find work where he was? Mm-hmm. But he wanted to do certain things and do certain types of work. So he would go long distances to do what he wanted to do.
Okay.
And so it started to slow down and become a little more stable because we had to be in school at age 5 and onward.
Right.
So we got our first house at age 5, and we had it until I was maybe 15.
Okay.
And then we lost it again because he wouldn't stay at the same job. And he's talented and bright, but I don't know what his deal was.
Okay.
There might be some sort of mental illness there, but no diagnosis.
Okay.
And what I noticed about him was that he never asked the question in his mind, what is best for my family and children? It was always what he wanted to do. Yeah. And that was all that mattered.
Wow.
And my mom is kind of broken in a lot of ways. She was in a bad accident. She was hit by a car. And then she also had some life traumas that made her pretty fragile and unable to work. Okay. And she still remains that way to this day. My entire life, she's not been able to work. She didn't drive. She didn't learn how to drive until she was in her 50s. So, it really fell onto my erratic father to make all the decisions. And so we were often, me and my sister were split up, left at different people's houses, bounced around from person to person. Sometimes my mom would also leave with him. I'm not very close with them and never really figured out what was going on. Okay. But there was no explanation and no reassurance that things were going to be okay. So then later in life, around 15, we lost our house again because my dad had made some job decisions that didn't work out. I found out only in the last few years that 2 times in our life, his parents had given him enough money to buy a house. And he took the money and did something else with it.
But you don't know what?
I don't know what.
Okay.
I think he was using that money to leave us all the time.
Okay. Wow.
So then they did it again. And once again, he did not buy us a house. Wow. He took the money and did something else.
That's crazy.
That's how very much into doing what he wants to do. So then after we were teenagers and we lost the place again, me and my sister were split up and sent to different friends' houses. And that lasted a while. I started working at age 16. I had to work because my parents made me pay for a lot of things myself. Food was always a questionable resource. So basically the bottom line is the basic needs of stability, home, shelter, food were not addressed at all, ever, with no explanation or ever reassurance that it was going to be okay.
Sure.
So then I started working at 16 because I knew I was going to have to start taking care of myself young.
Yeah.
And I was really smart in school. I finished all my classes early.
Nice.
They wanted me to skip a grade or two, but I didn't want to because it was so easy to get A's.
Yeah.
Why make it harder on myself when I had all this stuff going on? So I just got through, and then our parents started telling me and my sister really young, like pre-teens, maybe even up to young as 10, that they were going to leave us as soon as we were 18. And there would be no money for college. There would be no house to live in. There would not be in our lives anymore.
Wow.
So as I got older, the terror in me started growing because I knew I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't going to be set up for success. And when my sister was 1 year older, so she was 19, she moved into the only available grandparents' house. So she got a place. But then when it was my turn, there was no one.
There's no options.
And I just remember asking my parents, like, how am I supposed to get a job? How am I supposed to go to college when you keep moving around like this?
Yeah.
And they just simply said, it's not our problem.
Seriously?
Yeah, just right to my face.
Wow.
They were very like that always. Like, it's just not my problem. My parents were sober people and very confusing because they were very Christian, but they treated us this way. So it was a confusing upbringing. My dad used to say, you don't need a father. God will take care of you. He'll provide everything. I don't have to do that. So they used Christianity and religion to not take any personal responsibility for anything in their lives, including work.
That is
something else.
Yeah.
And so I was 18 and I was faced with this really awkward decision. I was like, so I asked them, I know you're leaving. Where are you going? And they said, we're going to this address for a few months. And after that, we don't know. Okay. And they said, you can come with us to the Sacramento address temporarily. But then after that, we don't know. And I realized if I went with them, how would I be able to get a job in 3 months and then have to change it? And if I kept following them around, it was never going to get better.
Right.
And so they left, and I didn't have a car at this time. I didn't have savings. I hitchhiked to a river, and I slept in the bushes for a couple of years. I got a job at a preschool because I had been working from 16 to 18 at a state-run daycare that allowed single moms to go to college, and we would take care of the kids while they were in school on the campus, on the college campus. It was great.
Kind of cool, yeah.
So I had that background. I got another job at a preschool, and I would hitchhike to work until I could afford it.
Wait, hold on. You hitchhiked every single day?
Every day. It was super dangerous.
Wow.
I had some really weird stuff, scary stuff happen. Nothing happened to the extent it could have, but I had people drive me away with me into places that I was not trying to go.
Right.
And anyway, so then I was finally able to afford a car. I lived in the car. Then the car broke down. Same old situation. Okay. And then, so that Honda broke down. Then same things. Hitchhiked to the job, saved for a truck with a camper shell. Toyota got the camper shell. That worked out for a really long time. But I realize one of the issues is the inability to save money to repair vehicles, to weather times of unemployment. It was the lack of having anyone to ask for help, having no savings, no higher education, single female, all the stuff, and not being able to save money. So if anything goes wrong, you lose your place to live if you have one.
Yeah.
And this has kept happening to me like my whole life. So that continued, and it was just this, I felt like it kept happening.
Yeah.
In one way or another. I got a house for a while, and then my job ended because the place I was working, they retired, and they were going to move away. They were from Europe, and that ended.
Wow.
And then there was a gap again, and I lost that place to live because I didn't have any savings to pay the rent while I was looking for another place.
Wow.
So back to the truck, and this just, multiply that times a long time. And then I was working as a river guide. I got Lyme's disease, and I ended up really, really sick in my early 20s.
Okay.
At that point, I did reach out to my parents. This was all before cell phones. I would not know where they were often. I can't remember how I found them. And so they let me come and stay and recover. Took a really long time.
Yeah.
And it was financially devastating. So I got back on my feet, got a job, moved to the Bay Area.
Okay.
And went to college full time for a while, and then had to go part time. And because I had to work.
Sure.
Through a friend, I took some specific classes, and I got a job at a hospital.
Oh, nice.
So this was the first time I had enough money to survive and be okay.
Okay.
And I was good for 6 years, but then I was in a bicycle accident.
Oh, no.
And lost the use of the right side of my body, and still in tons of pain. I had enough money saved to get by for a while.
Okay.
But I couldn't use my arm for about 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
And lost, the money just goes away. And I was paying out of pocket a lot for modalities that worked, but it wasn't covered by, Western medicine. And I moved in with my sister for a while, and they're in the Sacramento area, and got a place to live. Separate from her, I was there for a while, got a place to live, still looking for a job. I was there for 9 months looking for work.
Wow.
It's not good work environment there. So I moved in to a friend's house who had lived, I knew from the Bay Area. He'd bought a house there, wasn't living in it, living with his, girlfriend. They were older. And then after I'd been there for 3 months, his daughter and their child fell on hard times, and I had to go. So I was displaced again.
Wow.
So in the Bay Area and in Sacramento, I was displaced 3 times in San Francisco in a row by people wanting to move back into their house, renovating it and selling it for many more millions. So that whole time when the rent prices were doubling, quadrupling, I kept getting displaced 3 times in a row, got tired of it, went to Sacramento. It happened again.
Okay.
So, and at that point, I had money saved. I was down to my last couple $1,000s after not working for all of that time and really trying and having a beautiful resume. Wow. So I was like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going back to the Bay Area. I can get a job like that. Sure enough, job like that.
Nice.
Right? Once again, though, I'm only making about $18 an hour. I'm working at a body working clinic because my injuries were so expensive and continuing to this day. I have to get body work done out of pocket every single month. It's about $300 a month. Wow. And that's not going anywhere. Yeah. If I don't get them, I start going numb again in my right hand, and I can't work. It's a cycle.
Yeah.
And so I just wasn't making it. I was living in Berkeley, and I had, rent to this lady, and she allowed me to split it between 2 paychecks. After a few months at the clinic, one of the interns working there pushed my hip out of the socket. And
how? What?
He
how?
was doing deep tissue, and he did it wrong.
Oh, wow.
And he didn't know what he was doing, and I was too new to know this person.
Sure.
And after I worked with him for a while, all the other therapists were like, he's dangerous. He doesn't know what he's doing. He ended up injuring clients.
Wow.
I'm still not okay. I couldn't walk. I was on crutches. It was an inch out. They popped it back in. My leg was dragging. Maybe possibly permanent damage. I'm in pain all the time. When I drive a lot, it really, it's not good. So there's that. Once again, loss of income.
Yeah.
All loss of income and homes. Small increments close together.
Right.
Then I was doing temp work, and it was going well as far as me working, but there were always gaps in between the assignments. So then fast forward, finally got a permanent job. I was there for maybe 3 months, and I was still in training, and COVID happened.
Oh, wow.
And I lost my job. They closed down the whole building I worked in in San Ramon, and lost my place to live because the woman I was staying with, her boyfriend and his adopted son had no place to go. So I got displaced again. And so, like, looking back on all of these issues, the components that all come together to have this continually happen is, you know, lack of parental support and stability early on, being a female, single, with no higher education, low pay, lack of savings, out-of-pocket medical expenses, you know, inability to repair vehicles if they break.
Yeah. What do you think the cause of it is? Like, do you ever sit and just wonder, like, where this is all coming from?
I mean, I have a spiritual answer for it.
Sure.
But so through my process, I started digging into like soul work and past life stuff and shamanism and karma and some things like that, and how people in our lives that show up now, we might have been in the same family previously. So I had some soul retrieval work done. I've had a lot of soul parts retrieved and returned to me. Okay. In this process, I read a lot about PTSD because I have PTSD from long-term trauma and stress. We also had neighbors that killed animals because they were on drugs, and I had to listen to the animals crying and screaming. This went on for 10 years when it really messed me up. Plus my parents' erratic behavior and their attitude towards me did not ever seem like my survival was a priority.
Important.
At all. Not at all. Like completely on your own from a really young age. So those kind of impressions. But so I read a lot of books about PTSD, and I understand like how there are certain symptoms that are common through each person, but PTSD can also show up in a unique way in each person, as we are unique. So I read about this, and then I moved into like soul retrieval work because I knew I needed deeper work done to break these cycles that I definitely was not inviting. I've tried so hard. My friends that know me see how hard I try and how I never give up, and I do the right thing all the time, and it doesn't pay off. So I read about soul retrieval work, and their explanation of this is when you have a traumatic event, whether it's a severe accident, abuse, you know, all these things that happen, a piece of your soul leaves to survive the incident. And often it can't find its way back. Often it won't come back if the situation is a continuing one and it's not safe. Often it doesn't know how to get back on its own. I had a bunch of retrieval work done over, like, from fetal, because I had fetal soul loss because my mom was attacked while she was very pregnant with me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then all the way up till in my 30s. And I've had all the pieces put back in. There's about 10. There's more missing, but one lady I talked to did a past life soul retrieval. And I was part of a tribe. This was like Ice Age's time. And there was a tribe. It was all snow and ice, very cold outside. Okay. I was a powerful shaman and a healer. And the elder women in the tribe were jealous. And they conspired against me that I was responsible for a tribesman's death. So they spread these rumors and lies about my performance, and the tribe voted that I would be put out in the cold. And I perished. Now, if I was in a tribe, I had family in that tribe, and they did not have regard for my survival.
Wow.
So I'm not sure if that has anything to do with what I'm still experiencing.
Right. It's still happening.
But it's still happening.
Yeah.
And I've only had one past life one done. Everything else I'm focusing on this life now because I'm here now. Yeah. And I need to function here.
Yeah, exactly. You got to get through the days.
So that's that. So that's that part of it. Wow. But so my solution has been, I said, okay, I keep getting displaced. Yeah. What can I do to not get displaced?
That's what I was going to ask next.
Yeah. So
what can you actually do?
Yeah. And I can't afford my own place. And often roommates can be very difficult. Yeah. And I've been really tired of that. So a friend of mine, without me asking for help, was like, I will co-sign for a vehicle. Wow. So nice. I got a $42,000 Ram ProMaster.
Okay.
The big, tall, white
Is that
vans.
a huge thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can stand up and walk around inside.
Nice.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so I'm slowly like renovating the interior and putting
Okay.
the insulation in and the hardwood floors. I have a bamboo ceiling.
Nice.
It's beautiful.
That's awesome.
So,
And where do you stay with it? Like, do you have to move around
no,
on a regular basis?
I've been
or-
lucky, and there are designated safe parking places that you just park.
Yeah.
And
okay.
it's safe. They have people watching it. It's really clean and safe.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few in the area.
Okay.
And so
Do they
I don't have to worry.
plumbing so you can
Oh yeah,
use
they've got.
bathrooms and
They
everything?
always have indoor spaces.
Wow.
Some of them have had like kitchens. They always have offices, bathrooms, community areas. It's pretty great.
For the folks listening that might be interested, like, how
Yeah.
did you find that in the first place?
Well, I Googled some things and I found a few places. Unfortunately, some of the places have closed because the property was sold. The land has
Sure.
been sold. So I also experienced discrimination at one of the places I was trying to get help. They said, we don't help people with those types of vans. If you have that van, then you don't need help.
Wow.
They literally discriminated against the size
van.
of my size and type of my vehicle.
That's wow.
I'm a female. I should be able to park safely.
Yeah.
I'm not causing problems.
Yeah.
I've always worked my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of weird. So it's just biased
Yeah.
and like incorrect.
It's like saying that because you have this large vehicle, you're self-sufficient
Sure.
and you don't need any help.
And I
Wow.
could not have gotten the
Making
loan.
assumptions.
Sure. And I could not have gotten the loan without the help of a
Your
friend
friend.
with a really high income.
Yeah.
Because I did try to get one on my own, of course.
Yeah.
But also, not having family or siblings to ask for co-signing. My sister initially did offer to co-sign for me without me asking. We had
Okay.
a conversation
nice.
on Christmas, and I was like, I have an idea on how to break the cycle. And she's like, oh, if you for some reason can't get the loan, we'll co-sign.
Nice.
And when it came down to it, she wouldn't do it.
How do you think governments, the governments in the areas that you've lived in, have been able to help you? Like,
I've been really grateful there are like shower programs. Food banks are super helpful. Not being able to store food is a real problem.
Yeah.
And so I can't go grocery shopping because then it'll just go bad.
Right.
So, or I can, but it's really strange. And so I'll go to food banks and I'll eat what is provided in the way that I can. And that helps save like a lot of money.
Good.
I don't know how they could do better.
Right.
I mean, I feel like more safe parking would be really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Shelters are an absolute nightmare. I had a horrific time.
That's one of my questions is, have you
was-
spent time in a shelter?
Yeah, when I was having the surgery situation, I ended up in a shelter.
Oh,
that
yeah.
is where all the schizophrenics go
Why?
after they get out of a mental institution.
Okay.
There was throwing of chairs, there was fighting, there was cussing. I was on edge all the time. I couldn't sleep. They took all the doors off all the rooms.
And wait, that's where you went to heal
Yeah.
from your
Yeah.
surgery?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I had to lay flat and have certain amenities because I couldn't move for a while. It was really ugly.
Yeah.
So
Sounds awful.
yeah, so to avoid that, once again, the van was the solution.
Yeah.
Making shelters safe, maybe having more like pro-women sections. I mean, it was mixed, and guys came in my room when I was asleep, and it was just really unnerving.
Yeah.
And I was in a shelter for a short stint because my car had broken down that I was living in during the winter. I'd paid a mechanic to do a simple tune-up, trying to be responsible. She messed up, and my vehicle broke, and I couldn't make the connection to get it fixed. So it was down for months while I was trying to save money to repay
Right.
a different mechanic because I didn't trust her at this point to get it fixed.
Wow.
So I had to go to a shelter. That shelter was where all the everyone getting out of prison goes right away. Total violence, guys
Yeah.
punching each other out, like the whole
Wow.
thing just every night. And they had guys and girls sleeping in the same room. And it was really not okay. I wrote a letter to the mayor.
Yeah.
I wrote a letter
Yeah.
to the people that started it. And I was like, why?
Right. Yeah.
We had 2 buildings and it was mixed in both. I'm like,
But
no, girl, boy.
Yeah.
Male, female.
At the very least.
Sure.
Yeah.
So they came and changed that.
Oh, they did?
Right away, but it was near the end of my time there,
Oh,
which was
okay.
short. couple months.
At least you made some difference for people coming after you.
Yeah, for the future.
Least. Yeah. Wow.
So I think safety, lacking safety is the number one thing. Who cares if you have all the other things if you're not safe? Say you have like a nice house and a nice car and all this stuff, but you're not safe. None of that matters.
Yeah.
Food, it's hard to digest food when your stomach's in knots because you're not safe.
Yeah.
And you lose your health.
You're constantly worried.
Yeah. Safety is it.
Yeah.
And my parents did not provide safety for us. And roommates have not been safe. Houses not safe because I keep getting displaced.
Yeah.
It's really foundational.
Wow.
So the van provides that safety.
That's good.
However, when I was not in safe parking, so many break-in attempts with me inside.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I just was
terrifying.
I couldn't sleep at night. I was so nervous all the time.
Yeah.
Because I thought there were tools in there or something. So then...
Just something.
Yeah, but I'm in there and that's enough, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be all right. I mean, eventually I would like to buy a small piece of property so I can be on my own property.
Do you feel you can save now? Are you at a point now where you can save again?
No, not yet.
Not yet?
Because unfortunately I spent way more on the van than I wanted to, like double what I was aiming for, but I was running out of time and I just had to have something.
Yeah.
And so it was so hard to find what I have.
Right.
I was looking in other states. I mean, I was really on it for about 6 months.
Wow.
Couldn't find one. Missing the boat, making the call. Oh, we already sold it. Over and over and over and over. So when I got this one, I just got it. I didn't care. I have to pay on it for 5 years.
Okay.
$750 a month.
Oh my Lord.
Right.
So what would you say is the biggest misconception of the unhoused out there?
I mean, in general, the population living on the street and in vehicles have really bad behaviors. And they cause problems. They destroy property. They leave garbage everywhere. It attracts mice and rats. There's often a lot of animal abuse. There's a lot of drug and alcohol abuse. A lot of disrespect for noise and just... keeping a place clean. I can understand why people don't want certain types of people in the neighborhood because they do a lot of destruction. That is the majority. So that's unfortunate. I'm kind of an anomaly. I've met other people like me, mainly women, who are working and responsible, and bad things have happened. A friend's house got flooded within 2 weeks of her buying it in Texas during that storm.
God.
She lost all of her money, hasn't gotten any money from the insurance, it can take years.
Right.
So just things happen to people where they lose a lot of money. But in general, the homeless population does cause problems. And
so
it's largely drug and alcohol, mainly drug addiction. That is that thing that you see that you're just like, wow, how can it be such a disaster right here? There's garbage spilling into the street. From my experiences being around this, even though I'm not like that, it's a drug addiction.
Sure.
Particularly methamphetamines, heroin, and fentanyl.
Okay. So that's not a misconception then?
It's not. It's not at all.
Conception.
It's not at all. And when people have like the addictions, they have trouble staying on track to secure housing because they might get high and lose a week or two.
Yeah.
And they can't, and often they don't have IDs and all these things.
Yeah.
There are plenty of amazing programs that anyone can take advantage of.
Okay.
But their addictions and or mental illness keep them from being successful and getting off the streets.
Yeah. So what do you think should be done differently?
I think there needs to be some requirements for people to try to get sober.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I really do.
That's...
Because they either cannot stay on top of the housing, they can't jump through the hoops of getting housing when they're high all the time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of violence. There's, that's a barrier.
Yeah.
When people are clear-minded and, sober, or if they're on the right medication, they can be successful. I've seen it. I've seen, like, when I was in the institution, or when I was in the shelter with the schizophrenics, there were a few people there that were on their meds. They were on it.
Nice.
They were so on it, and then you could see the behavior of the people not taking their meds. I'm talking complete disaster, running into the roads, throwing things over, it was night and day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The argument can be made that being unhoused causes you to develop an addiction.
Yeah.
Do you think that's true?
Yeah, it's somewhat.
Can you see that?
One of the, I was taking a class before COVID, and I did my report on the unhoused in San Francisco.
Okay.
And one of the statistics I read was that a lot of people were not addicts before they became homeless. They became addicts because being on the street and without basic resources is so devastating.
Yeah.
I think also, and that's true.
Yeah.
But it's a tough one. It's the chicken and the egg thing.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think a lot of people have PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
And they also did not have family, or they were raised in a way maybe their parents were also addicts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this stuff is really deep.
Yeah.
But we can't fix the past.
Mm-mm.
We can't fix their childhood. We can't fix all of that. Probably getting help for PTSD.
Yeah.
Everyone should do it.
Yeah.
But what we have to look at now, what's happening now that's keeping people from being unsuccessful, and that is often drug addiction and mental illness.
Yeah.
So we can't fix the past. We have to fix the behaviors now.
Yeah. Can you talk about the kindness that you've seen towards you while being unhoused?
It's been rough. I've been treated horribly. I've been discriminated against. I don't even want to talk about how bad it has been. And that's mainly by the staff of shelters. And like the men in the shelter, and just the whole thing is people in places of power. It's been really awful. But there were, some kind people working at some of these situations, at the safe parking places. I've had better experiences with the staff. The shelter's not. I had a lady let me stay in her RV while her mother was ill. That was nice.
Yeah.
But I also was doing her a favor by keeping an eye on it and keeping it safe from being empty, right? Yeah. So it was a give and take.
Sure.
I've shown a lot of kindness.
Okay.
I've helped people's pets. I've taken them to the vet. I got a program called Pets of the Homeless to pay for the surgeries.
Nice.
I've done a lot of work and help towards the people in these communities.
Yeah.
Gone above and beyond.
Good.
So, but once again, I don't have the same mental illness issues or addiction issues that these people have.
Right.
And the people I was helping with the pet situations, and it was numerous, were all on something. And they didn't have cars, they didn't have working phones.
Sure.
They really cut themselves off if something goes wrong to get help. Mm-hmm. So I would say the kindness has been me towards the community.
Okay. Hi again. Thanks for listening. If you know of any unhoused individuals that would like to be interviewed, or you would like to submit an interview yourself, please reach out to us through the website, understandingtheunhoused.org. Click on the contact button, send us a quick message. We'll get back to you as soon as we can and get things moving. Also, while on the site, if you're feeling generous, please click on the donate button. There is a very low overhead for this podcast, but there are costs involved. Especially when Wendy and I go out to the unhoused community, we always want to have supplies with us, and funds are always welcome to help that along. Thanks again for listening. I hope after hearing these stories, you will have a little more compassion, a little more empathy, and a better understanding of the unhoused.